Hi there. Thank you for joining us for our North Santa Barbara County Real Estate Market webinar. I'm Corby Gage, the Executive Director of Coastal Housing Partnership. With us today is also Kim Pascage from Coastal Housing Partnership. She's our Program Manager. Today's webinar features two North Santa Barbara County real estate agents, Roberta Badisher.
Hi.
Roberta's with Coldwell Banker Select, and Michelle Gloss. And Michelle is with Village Properties.
Hi.
Roberta and Michelle are both part of Coastal Housing Partnerships network. And as part of that network, these agents contribute a portion of their commission back to their clients who are employed by companies that are part of Coastal Housing Partnership. So the format for today's webinar, I will be asking Michelle and Roberta some questions about the process of buying a home and how to be competitive in today's real estate market. The remainder of our time together will be for you to get your questions answered. And we'll also be recording today's webinar, so we can send you a link to that recording. So the webinar format means that your cameras are off and your microphones are off. So if you have questions, we really encourage you to ask them, but you're going to be doing that through the Q&A. You can ask your questions anonymously if you like. Feel free to put your questions in at any time through the webinar, and we'll be fielding those questions at the end of our session together. So we can't stress enough how important it is to work with a qualified real estate agent on your home purchase. Today's market is very competitive and you want to have a professional on your team. So rather than trying to go it alone, highly recommend working with an agent. And working with an agent as a buyer does not cost you anything. The seller pays the agent. So it's a good idea to have an agent, as well as if you're working with someone within our network, there's, as I mentioned, a commission credit that comes back to you. So it's a smart move. So before we get started, we'd like to take just a short anonymous poll to determine who our attendees are today in terms of where you are in the process of buying a home, and that will help us gear our comments to you and to meet your needs. So the poll is up. And we'll just take just a few moments to get those responses in. And we'll be sending those responses to our panelists so they know where you are in the home buying process. Okay, Kim, are we, I think we're ready on that poll. All right, we'll close out that poll. All right, well, let's get started. Roberta, would you just please share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Again, my name is Roberta. I'm a Coldwell Banker Select Realty. My office is out of Lompoc, but I service Lompoc and Santa Maria areas. I've been in real estate since 2001. I was originally from Goleta, moved up here in 1994 and have been here since. And I love our area.
Great. Thanks, Roberta, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Michelle, would you please share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Corby. And thank you to all of you who are participating today. This is really an exciting time. I'm Michelle Gloss, and I've been a full-time real estate agent with Village Properties for 10 years. I've lived my entire life in the Santa Ynez and Santa Barbara areas, and that's where I perform the bulk of my business. My prior careers were in construction management and contract administration, both of which served me really well in this ever-evolving business of real estate. Additionally, I serve on the local Santa Ynez Valley Board of Realtors. I love what I do. I represent clients across all price points, my strengths being in my attention to detail and my responsiveness. I've found that being responsive and attentive to my clients' questions just removes so much stress. And a lot of undue stress can be addressed just through communication. Thank you.
Well, we're fortunate to have such longtime real estate professionals with us today and sharing their knowledge. So appreciate you joining us once again. So Michelle, we're going to start with you. What should someone do to prepare to purchase a home, and what's the importance of a pre-approval in that process?
So in my opinion, the pre-approval is the number one thing that a prospective buyer should do. And the first part of that is finding a lender or a couple of lenders who you're going to be providing financial information to in order to secure your pre-approval. Stressing local. We are in a very competitive market right now, and if all other factors of the offers are identical, a listing agent is going to encourage their seller to accept an offer from a buyer who's working with a local agent, somebody that they have a track record with, someone that they can have communication with throughout the transaction. It's pretty difficult to get somebody from Quicken on the phone. So yes, really stress that you get connected with a local lender. Colby has a list of affiliated lenders who provide some discounts to you through the Coastal Housing Partnership. You may also have a relationship with your bank, your credit union, but start making that contact. They're going to want to see your couple of years of W-2s and tax returns. Now's not the time to file for an extension. You want to be filing your taxes on time. And there's a benefit to you as well. Through the process of getting pre-approved, it's going to define your purchasing power. Either how much of a mortgage coupled with how much of an HOA fee plus your taxes and insurance that you can afford. And right there's two levels as well. It's what the lender's willing to loan you, but then it's also what your personal comfort level is. In my experience, my husband and I, we were blown away with what a lender was willing to loan us. That wasn't our comfort level. So it's going to define where you need to be, where you're comfortable shopping. And that's very important. Let's see, also during this process, from the time that you're getting pre-approved all the way through the end of your purchase, do not make any large purchases. Don't purchase furniture, don't purchase a car, don't do any of those things. You're going to want to keep your credit and everything constant during this process. Really quickly, there's three types of approvals. There's the pre-approval. This is something that a lender provides based off of information that you provide them. This can be typically given to you within a day's time. You're providing the lender with what your income is, what your assets are, what your debts are, and they can give you a pre-approval. The next step is called a pre-qualification. It's a little bit stronger than a pre-approval. The lender in that case has verified your income and checked your credit score and verified your assets. So that pulls a little bit more weight. Then there's also the fully underwritten loan approval. This is the best thing to have. It does take some time, so it could be something that you pursue while you're going along looking for your home, but that is where you work with a lender and they take you through the entire loan approval process. So the only item that's left is the property and the appraisal. And that last one, the fully underwritten approval, is golden in a multiple offer situation.
Great. Now, Michelle, it's my understanding that there's no charge for pre-approval. Is that right?
Correct. At the time that you're purchasing, there will be a charge for an appraisal, and that typically is paid up front, not through escrow, but no, pre-approval, that's provided free of charge.
Okay, and that's probably a good idea to do that even if someone's not ready to buy right away, just so they have a better feel for what's going on with the process and what they'd be eligible for in financially?
Yes, agreed. And then again, because of our market, my recommendation is it's very important to know what that is. And then I recommend that you look at or below what you are approved to, because so many properties are going for over ask.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Great, thank you. That's so helpful. That's one of the biggest, issues is, well, where do I start? What do I do? So starting with that getting that pre-approval before seeing your agent sounds like a great idea. Roberta, what should I look for in a real estate agent? If I'm, it seems like there's so many available. What would I ask? Are there certain questions I should ask? Do I interview? What's that process like?
Yeah, I think I would recommend possibly interviewing a couple agents. You want someone that you can relate to, someone that knows the market. And one of the most important things that I think is out there too is that communication. You want someone that communicates with you, lets you know how the market's doing, and knows your wants and needs, so that when something comes on the market, they let you know right away. If you get someone that doesn't communicate as often, then a home that you may have liked may already be gone by the time you hear about it.
So it sounds like that speed of, making sure you're ready, prepared to make an offer, and your agent calling you right away and saying, come on, let's make that happen, is really important in today's market.
It is, because some homes, it seems like what a lot of sellers are doing is they're giving a time period, like saying that after a week's time, then they'll look at all offers. So you want to make sure that you get in there within that time frame.
Okay. And are there certain qualifications or things that you should be looking for in an agent, particular questions that you might want to ask to get a feel for how that agent would work with you?
There could be maybe, how long have you been a realtor? What areas do you cover? Are you full-time or part-time? That's something that could be asked also. How well do you know the market?
And does it matter whether an agent is more of a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, or does that make any difference?
It can make a difference in a way. If a buyer is looking at a particular property and they're communicating with the listing agent, because they may want someone that just represents them and not both sides of the transaction. Then I know a lot of people that I work with feel more comfortable that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So, Michelle, what's the process of buying a home, including making an offer? What's involved in that?
So again, it's really exciting. Everybody loves looking at homes. Especially in this fast market, in my 10 years of experience, this is a first. What the COVID threw us into, it's crazy. When it first hit, me and my colleagues were like, oh no, it's 2008 all over again. And it was just the opposite, absolutely crazy. My recommendation to you is, as soon as you find an agent that you're comfortable with and have decided you want to work with, before you've seen the house you want, get to know the contract. Ask the agent to familiarize you with the offer document. The offer document is referred to as the real estate purchase agreement. We refer to it as in an acronym, the RPA. It's right now, the RPA with the automatically attached disclosures and advisories is 25 pages. That's 25 pages of fine print. That's not 25 pages that you want sent to you in DocuSign, 2 hours before the offers are going to be looked at. That's 25 pages that you want to be able to read in detail and have any of the paragraphs that you don't understand either explained to you in detail. And there are some paragraphs in there that realtors are not allowed to advise you because that would be considered practicing law. So if those are areas that you have questions on, you want the time to be able to understand that. This offer, once signed by you and the seller, becomes the contract. That's the contract that both parties have to perform to, and are subject to being in breach of contract if they don't. So it's very important that you are familiar and comfortable with that document. Then now the fun starts. Creating a wants and needs list, you know, area, number of stories, number of bedrooms, numbers of bathrooms, whether or not you want a yard, all of those things. And then I recommend to you there, be flexible. You know, my husband and I are currently living on a property that we would have never come up with on our list ever. So, you know, be flexible, trust the process. Many times something will resonate with you in a property that you've never even considered. So, yeah, enjoy the process, trust the process, and, you know, just try to be flexible because you could be surprised.
So it sounds like, too, as you're going through that process, maybe those wants and needs are going to change depending on what you're seeing, what's out there. That's a really important thing to communicate to the agents, so they know to be looking at then maybe something different for you than you originally had identified. Is that's an important dialogue?
Yes, it definitely evolves, and so
Mhm.
just constant communication. You know. Maybe you went to see something without your agent, giving them feedback. So, you know, just all of those things, just constant communication back and forth is going to get you guys kind of on the same page. And think of
Great.
yourself as a team.
Mhm.
It's just really important to find somebody that, you know, you're comfortable with, that you don't feel like you're bothering, that they're accessible, and that you can, you know, partner with and accomplish the goal.
Great. And that goes back to Roberta's comment on how important it is to be able to have an agent that you're communicating with, and that's a strong, you know, back and forth with, and that they're communicating with you on a very timely basis. So good point on that, Roberta. So
Right.
Roberta, how do I determine once I found a property that I think, okay, this is the one, you know, how do you determine how much to offer on a house? I know that it's pretty competitive. Sometimes we see multiple offers. How do you know how to come in on a price?
That's why it's important to work with an agent. It can be really helpful for you because we can show you the market trends. If you're not aware of it nowadays, it seems a lot of people are, but we can show you the trends, what the market's been doing, what homes in that area have been selling for. And then after giving you that information, we can let you know maybe in what ways buyers may be, what they may be offering in order to help them get the property.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the price, it's mostly just showing them what has been out there, and then sit down and answer any questions. Again, the communication is so important, and questions are great because that's how you learn through the process too.
And so will you tend to know, Roberta, if there's going to be multiple offers on a property, is that something that as an agent you would pretty much know ahead of time and could advise your client about?
Yeah, what I do is before I write an offer, I'll call the listing agent and just, you know, ask them how many offers they currently have. And then I let the buyers know that too, so that they're aware when we're writing it up.
So that would help guide you in terms of the pricing.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 right now, there are multiple offers.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But someone's getting those homes. So
Yeah, they are.
It's going to be one of our attendees. I feel strongly about that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. That's so helpful just to get an overview of kind of what the process is, what's happening. Now what the question that everyone always wants to know is, what's the market like? You know, what's today's market like? And how do you compete with multiple offers? Michelle, you know, this is great. Michelle, you work in Santa Ynez, Solvang, and Roberta works Lompoc, Santa Maria. So we're going to get a really rich sense of what, that full North County market is like. Michelle, can you give us some info on what that Santa Ynez Valley market is like right now?
The Santa Ynez Valley market, like everywhere else, has appreciated drastically. It's very fast paced. Best case, the seller does, so I don't know if the participants on the call realize, but as agents, we use the multiple listing service. And in the multiple listing service, there are private remarks that are only visible to other agents. So when the feed goes out on the feeds to Zillow and realtor.com and all of those go out, it has all the descriptions and stuff, but it hides those private remarks. So we love it when we see in the private remarks that the seller is actually going to show the house for a week and then, review offers on Tuesday. Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more that they are, how do they phrase it? Basically, they're saying, our plan is to review on Tuesday, but if we receive an incredible offer, we reserve the right to accept that offer ahead of time. So as a buyer, you need to be really agile, find an agent that, can show you properties after hours, on holidays, on Sundays, whatever is going to work. You need to be working with an agent that is going to advocate on your behalf and get you into these properties just as quickly as they can. If I could go back to certain aspects of writing a competitive offer, Corby.
Yes, yeah.
You want your agent to find out what the seller wants and needs. The rental market is really crazy. The moving companies are all backed up because there's so many people moving about. And so anything you can do in your offer to address needs other than just price for a seller is really important. So one of the big accommodations that buyers are doing is they're offering the seller to be able to remain in the property for so really quickly, you put in an offer on a piece of property, the seller accepts, you're now in escrow together. Now you as a buyer begin your due diligence, you do your inspections, you confirm that you can get insurance, your lender's doing the appraisal, you're going through the loan approval process. And if you're in a 30-day escrow, many times the seller doesn't know that this is going to be a done deal until 17 days in. And so they're obviously not going to be throwing themselves into boxes and things until you've removed all of your contingencies and it's a go forward. So one of the big things you can do in an offer is accommodate the seller by saying, hey, you can stay in the property beyond the close of escrow and you can negotiate a rent back for that. Lenders typically are okay with that for, around 30 to 60 days, but you definitely have to know from your lender if it's okay with them. Recommendation there is to definitely write in a deposit to be withheld and to be released to the seller once they vacate. There's been some nightmares. Sellers, and all good intentions, they're going to vacate and they just couldn't find another property. So there has to be an incentive other than the handshake for them to get out of the property. You want to have a hefty deposit that they're going to lose if they don't get out on time. Make your best offer. This isn't the time to hold back and think, oh, I want to leave a little bit for negotiating room, because you're not always going to be guaranteed a counter offer in a multiple offer situation. So, and you don't want to have offer remorse. You want to make your best offer coming out of the gate right now. Explore, basically, at least in the Santa Ynez Valley, listing price, unless it's absurd, listing price, if a property hasn't been on the market for more than a day, if a property hasn't been on the market for over 30 days, you can consider listing price as opening bid. Sellers aren't going to make much of a concession unless it's just a crazy asking. So I would definitely explore with your lender, how attractive you can make your offer. Just as a little guideline, at about 4.25%, an additional $10,000 on your offer equates to about a $50 increase in your monthly payment. So kind of explore those type of things with your lender and your realtor to just be as, you know, as competitive as possible coming out of the gate. Let's see, another way you can make your offer competitive is to reduce the number of days for inspections. By using a local realtor, they're going to be they're going to have relationships with the inspectors locally that are going to be able to, again, be agile and be responsive to them and get those inspections done for you really quickly. Let's see. Oh, and lastly, a buyer letter. Work with your realtor to put together a letter to the seller. There have been some recent changes in fair housing and discrimination rules and laws. And so we have to be very careful in how those are formulated to ensure that they're not you know, touching on anything that could be viewed as discrimination down the line. But it still does add a personal touch, and some, you know, a lot of sellers are still looking at those. Some sellers aren't looking at them, but it's always good to put it together just in case, give you that edge.
Great tips, great suggestions, Michelle. Roberta, what is the market like in Lompoc and Santa Maria? Are those pretty similar price-wise, or what are you seeing in terms of trends there?
Well, right now in Lompoc, there's only 13 homes on the market. And that's everything from one condo all the way up to 425 acres at 5.7 million. So
Wow, that's quite a range.
yeah, but only 13 here in Lompoc. And in Santa Maria, there's only 56 right now that are active. So their market's really moving fast too. And their prices, they have mobile homes that start at 69,000, and then the single family homes are from around 390 to 1.8 million.
And so, what's that looking like in trend wise? Is that a drop in inventory, or
we don't have, I mean, I think this is the lowest I've ever seen it in my 20 years of being in real estate. Wow. It's really low inventory.
And is that seasonal at all, or do you expect as we come into summer, something's going to change?
It seems like since COVID, it's been like this pretty steadily. Really? Usually there was a housing market time, you know, the spring was the time to buy, but right now it's constant. Yeah.
So that says to me, you've got to be that much more prepared and ready to go when your real estate agent says, hey, I found something that meets your needs. You've just got to be ready to have everything buttoned up and go.
Absolutely. And another trend that we're seeing with the offers to try to make it more competitive is that some of the properties, the areas have gone up so fast. So there's an issue that we're not sure if the home's going to appraise. And so what some buyers are doing is they're writing up the contract that, let's say the home is on the market for 570 and they're going to offer 590. And what they're saying in some offers is that if the property doesn't appraise for the 590, then they'll pay the difference out of pocket in order to get the house. Yeah, and I had a couple of clients that have wanted to do that. I don't necessarily recommend it because it's kind of, you know, you have to make sure you have that reserve cash if you do that. And what we've done a couple of times is we've said, okay, we'll pay, we'll put the offer for the 590. But if it only appraises for 580, then we'll only pay 2,000 over what it actually appraised for. Because in this market, you don't know how much of a gap there's going to be, and you don't want to get in the hole for $40,000. So.
Right. Well, that's an interesting process, and I guess that waiving that appraisal or putting some kind of caps on it is going to make the seller feel a lot more comfortable with your offer. So. That's interesting how much that term can make a difference more than just pricing. What other kinds of things are you seeing that are helpful in terms of getting your offer viewed or recognized or kind of coming up to the top in terms of multiple offers?
I used to do the letters. I really liked them because there was a personal touch to the sellers if they had an attachment to the property. But with the fair housing, it's kind of, a lot of agents will not accept them, and they tell you up front if they will or not a lot of the times. But I did have some buyers, and we had talked about it, and we didn't write a letter, but then the seller requested one.
Oh,
And so the buyers wrote the letter and they got the house. So it's all relative, I guess.
so you just have to be ready to whatever comes up.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of people coming into Lompoc or Santa Maria, are you seeing those as commuters from South Coast, or these are people who already live in North County or coming in out of the area? Are you seeing any trends that way?
I'm seeing a lot of people that are selling their current homes and moving up here in Lompoc. I'm seeing some activity from the base, people there, and Lockheed Martin, just different companies that are coming to the area.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that now I think about a lot of our locals that are here, that are buying.
So just ready to jump into the market, or taking advantage of the fact that they can sell their property and move up.
Right.
Okay. Great. Well,
If I can jump in,
yes.
because of the tight market here in the San Ynez Valley, and so little inventory, I think under 1 million, we have less than 5 houses being offered right now. It's just absolutely crazy. And because of that, we have a lot of people that would love to downsize. In the San Ynez Valley, we have, 100-acre parcels, 20-acre parcels, and people that live here love it here, and they would love to downsize as they get older, and those properties become difficult to maintain at an older age. But unfortunately, because we have so little inventory, they're reluctant to put their house on the market. So as an agent, I'm really looking forward to the marketing opening up somewhat, just to allow locals an opportunity to sell and stay local. A lot of our buyers are coming in from out of the area and just scooping up the inventory. And so it's really difficult to sell and stay here right now.
Yeah, those out of town buyers, you put a lot of pressure on the market.
And that's true. You can sell, but then where are you going to go?
Right.
So great information. Kim, are we seeing questions for our panelists? Or if folks haven't had a chance to put questions in, now's the time.
I have something to share, Corby, if that's all right.
Sure.
Something that buyers, and especially, first-time buyers, don't really realize is that the way that the offer document, the RPA, is written, all properties are being sold as is. So you'll see sometimes in a description, property being sold as is. The way the contract is written, the property is actually being sold as is in the condition of when you saw it. Once you're under contract, the seller has the responsibility to maintain that property in that condition as when you first saw it. So for buyers to realize is that there is no requirement to bring properties up to code at the time that a property transfers and whatnot. So sellers do have a responsibility to disclose anything and everything that they know about the property to a prospective buyer. But then it is the buyer's responsibility to do inspections at their own expense. They can have any inspection done to help them determine whether or not they want to purchase that property. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to get that seller to fix things. Typically, it's limited to health and safety items, especially in this market, and especially if they have a backup offer. But I do find that with first time buyers, many times they're surprised, like, well, if that's not up to code, how come they don't have to do that? And it's that's just not with California's aging real estate. Thankfully, we don't have that type of condition in place. Another thing to consider is when you see a property, so like I said, sellers have a responsibility to disclose everything they know about the property. If you're buying a property that's been, just flipped, you're not going to get the type of knowledge about the history of a property as you are from a longtime home buyer. I mean, a longtime homeowner. Same with the situation if, like if it was a trust sale that heirs inherited the property, they haven't been living in the property. They just don't know as much about it. So it is really important that you have agents that can connect you with good local professional inspectors to help you vet out a property and help you decide how much you want to take on. Sometimes first-time home buyers feel strapped money-wise, but it's money well spent. It could save you thousands and save you the headache of purchasing a property that you maybe would have never purchased had you known.
Mhm.
So I do know that paying for home inspections sometimes seems like, oh my gosh, just more money, but money well spent. Definitely money well spent.
Agreed. See that over and over again. It's just, there's so many things that we just can't see as lay people in terms of what's going on with the home. It's just a really terrific second look at a property. So good suggestion.
Right, and with having the home inspection, after you receive the report, you're able to negotiate with the seller to see if they will do any of the items. And if they don't, and if there's something that's really a concern to you, you're within your inspection period, you can cancel the contract. So that's something to keep in mind too, that it is as is, but if something major happens, you don't have to move forward.
Okay. And at that point, Roberta, so once you've done your home inspection, you find out something larger. Is the seller sometimes open to a price adjustment?
Sometimes they are, or sometimes we'll do the repairs too. We prepare what's called a repair for request list.
Okay.
And we give that to the seller along with the home inspection so that they know where the buyer's coming from and why they're asking for the items that they are. And it's all negotiable. Sometimes they'll do some of the work. Sometimes they'll do all of it, not so much in this market. And sometimes they may say, well, in lieu of doing the repairs, we'll give you $100 or, whatever amount they come up with. But what the buyer has to make sure is if the seller says, well, I don't want to do any of it, I'll give you $15,000 from the price, or I'll give you $15,000 through escrow. Then the buyer needs to check with their lender, or I help the buyers, I would, check with their lender too, to see if they're allowed to get that much of a credit, because they may not be able to with their loan.
And why would they give that credit versus taking that off the price?
Sometimes, it could go either way. Maybe
by receiving the credit, it actually, especially with a first-time home buyer, helps them in that
their closing costs.
Exactly. It offsets their closing costs. And, part of your closing costs are, amortized property taxes. And there's a number of things in your closing costs. So like a credit like that could really help you with out-of-pocket expenses versus reducing the purchase price of the home.
Okay. So, and that could be flexible in terms of a negotiation.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Kim, questions coming in?
Yes, we have a question here. It says, do you have a better chance of getting a home if you use an FHA, VA, or HUD loan?
Roberta, do you want to take that one?
What was the last one?
VHA, FHA, or HUD? Is that right?
Yeah, FHA, VA, or HUD.
I'm trying to think. There's some reasons why some sellers may be apprehensive about a VA loan, but there's ways that that it would still be a strong loan. One of the conditions is that with the VA loan, there needs to be a pest report and there has to be pest clearance on the house. And so if a seller knows that there's a lot of damage, they might be a little bit nervous about that loan. But now what's happening is, it used to be where the buyer of a VA loan could not pay for the repairs to be done, but now they can. The only thing they can't pay for is the report itself. So in that sense, if the VA buyer has the funds to take care of it, then I don't see much difference really between the FHA and the VA as far as loans.
I wonder if is the thought that, you're not coming in with as much down payment, and a seller might want to see someone coming in with a larger down payment. Does that make any difference in terms of a seller's perspective?
To me, I don't, maybe whether people don't think this way, but I don't think so, because that's between the lender and the borrower.
So the seller's not really impacted by that.
Right.
Okay. All right, great.
But that's my opinion.
I think here in the San Ynez Valley, where we get a vast difference amongst buyers. If you have a buyer, they refer to it as loan to value. If you have a buyer that's, you've got 3 buyers offering the same price, but one buyer's coming in with 97% financing. You've got another buyer coming in with 80% financing, and then you have another buyer coming in with 50% down and only financing 50%. I think that a seller is going to obviously look at that 50% loan to value as a stronger offer.
Even if they all have pre-approvals.
Correct, because you have a pre-approval, but that is not final loan approval.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The only way that is if you go that further step and get the fully underwritten approval, which was the third one I described, and is more time consuming to
And are you seeing that happening more frequently?
I have a buyer I'm working with right now who took it the extra step and did it on her lender's advice, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Kim, other questions?
Yeah, this might be more lending, but maybe you guys have some thoughts. Is there anything we should do or must do before obtaining a pre-approval letter?
Okay. Don't want to pick on either one of you in terms of if it is more lender related. I'll let you both respond, or either one of you, whatever your thoughts are.
I would just say go ahead, Roberta. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I would say do everything you can to improve your credit score. Pay any overdue credit cards and whatnot, but don't go overboard. I worked with a client recently, and I'll have to tell you, working with clients, I worked with this clients for 4 years, and finally got them into their first home last year. It was a wonderful experience, but they took it to the extreme, and they read Dave Ramsey's book, and they got rid of all of their debt. They sold their newer cars and they bought used cars, got rid of their car payments and everything. They cut up their credit cards, they got rid of everything. Then they went to go meet with the lender and tried to get a loan approval, and they said, but you don't have any credit. It was crazy. So, there's a balance. You do want to have some active credit in order to have a good credit score.
Good point. Roberta.
I was just going to say, it's a good idea to contact the lender. They can actually give you a list of everything you need to get pre-qualified or pre-approved.
Okay, good. So that's a step that's really working with the lender. Now, I know one of the things that sometimes people do is they'll think, oh, I'm going to try to get my credit in shape, like Michelle's client, and they do pay off all their credit cards. And often lenders expect you to have a certain level of debt. So sometimes what you're doing when you're paying off those cards is you're decreasing the amount that you have for your down payment. So it's not always a wise thing to do. I find that it's a good idea before you do anything to get your credit in shape is to talk with the lender and ask them what they recommend. What would be the wisest course? What things should I do to improve my score, to have myself be able to qualify to borrow a larger amount of money, because oftentimes what we're doing, we think is smart, and it's not helpful in terms of the lender's perspective. Kim.
I don't see any other questions. I know a question that's been asked previously in other webinars is, should I use a real estate agent in the market that I want to buy in, or does it matter?
It's a good question.
I definitely feel, I definitely feel that using a local agent is important. They know the market. We've had part of what has just made our market appreciate so astronomically. So many buyers were being represented by out-of-town agents that they were paying insane prices for things. So as a consumer, I think you are going to be best served by using a local agent that is familiar with the market. And then I know it's hard. Everybody loves bright, shiny things. But in the home buying process, the best way to build equity is to buy the worst house on the street. Like, you never want to be the best house on the street because you have nowhere to go but down. So yeah, those bright and shiny things are really nice. But if building equity is easy from the bottom up.
So buy the worst house and then you make it nice and shiny.
Exactly.
Okay. Roberta, any thoughts around that?
Sure. Yeah, that is a good point. Buying a house that needs some work because you have over the years to do what you want to it, make it yours. So it'd be less than the shiny one probably right now too.
Are you seeing agents coming in representing buyers from out of town and
yeah, and exactly what Michelle said, they're offering way over what maybe the last comp was. So it's kind of changing the market in a way too.
Because they just don't really know the market.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that, having an agent that knows the market so well and really that's what they do day to day is so helpful, because, you might be tempted to offer something that's not going to be an attractive enough offer to get you to compete with those multiple offers, and your agent's going to really know the market value of these homes. So really recommend you working with a qualified agent who's local. That's what we see from day to day. So kind of last chance on questions. Anyone have a
Guys,
final?
we did get a question.
Okay.
This person's asking, is there any hope? Do you see the market getting better for buyers? If so, what time frame do you see in the future?
Roberta, do you want to take that one?
That's a tough one. I wish I had a crystal ball and I knew what the market was going to do. The forecast that we received from Coldwell Banker in our office is that it's not, again, we can't guarantee it because we don't know what's going to do, but it seems to be that it is still going up a little bit. It's not, not like it has been so much in this last year, but continue to go up just a little bit.
And are you seeing that when the interest rates are going up, is that having an impact on slowing some of these multiple offers, or is it the prices not dropped?
So far, it doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not making that much of a difference. Michelle, any comments on that one?
So at the low end of the market, as interest rates rise, it's obviously going to affect people's buying power. And that's definitely, I think, going to affect the low end of the market, which in turn will affect, the other parts of the market. Yeah, it's just, and I got to tell you, I would love to see the market correct some. I've got 5 adult kids that I would love to, that they would have the opportunity to be homeowners. And, it's historically the best way to build wealth, and to see it being so challenging for so many people, it's tough.
All right, Kim, any other questions coming in, or this is the last Our last chance here.
I don't see anything right now. Again, please feel free to jump in here in our last minute here.
Okay, Roberta, Michelle, any final words of wisdom, anything that we didn't cover that you think would be helpful for folks to know as they, take this next step?
I would just like to encourage you as you delve into this process, be very engaged. It's once you start moving, once you get accepted, things are going to move very fast. There's a high volume of paperwork that's going to be coming your way. You're going to have paperwork, you're going to have disclosures from the sellers, you're going to have like a 50-page natural hazard disclosure report to review. You're going to have paperwork coming from escrow. You're going to have paperwork coming from your lender. Especially from the lender, there's timeframes associated with when you respond, how quickly they can issue out the next go around of paperwork. So it's really important that you're engaged and responsive. It's a lot of reading. Sometimes overwhelming, but I can't encourage you enough. Delve in, do your homework, read the stuff. Do not ask your agent, don't wave a 5-page form at your agent and say, what does this say? Just tell me what this says. You're a member of this team. You need to do your part. You need to read and understand. You're probably purchasing your biggest asset ever.
Mm-hmm. But can you look to your agent for guidance on, well, I don't really understand this. I've read it. I don't understand it. What is
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. They're there to shepherd you through the process every step of the way. But yes, but you definitely have to read it.
Okay. Right. Roberta, any final words of wisdom?
Michelle pretty much said a lot of it. If you're thinking about buying in the next couple months, maybe even a year or 6 months from now, just check with the lender and ask them what you can do to make your pre-qualification the strongest it can be.
Yeah, I think, Roberta, that's one of the most important things is just getting with a lender, starting with a lender, right now. It's great to be looking at properties and going online and seeing what's out there, but until you've gone to see the lender, you just really don't have, a sense of what your price range is. So I think that's a really important step. And a lot of times people will think that they shouldn't be seeing a lender until they're ready to buy. And that's, it's wise to see a lender, even if you don't think you're ready to buy for a couple of years. Get that process started, understand what it is you need to do to make yourself get into that readiness zone and make yourself be a competitive buyer. So the lender is really going to be the one that gets you set up to do that. So take that step. As Michelle mentioned, it doesn't cost anything. Kim, are you raising your hand? We have another question.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have 4 minutes, but what is a good down payment if not getting to the 20% mark?
So if someone doesn't have 20%, is there kind of another level that feels like you could be competitive? Is that what they're saying?
It's just, I think it just all depends on the circumstances. If you're not in a multiple offer situation, it's not that, it's not that important. So there's just so many, and sometimes the house is going to need work. And so you obviously don't want to tie up all of your money in your down payment because you want to be able to perform some needed repairs right away. So that's a really difficult question to answer, not knowing the specific circumstances.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your questions. Do I see another one coming in here, Kim?
No, we just answered that.
That was that one answered. Okay.
And then, yeah, but there are, I think you had stressed before, Corby, that people can get into the market even if they don't have the 20%. down,
Absolutely.
that there's different.
Absolutely. And that's where you want to talk to the lender and find out, what is your game plan? What's your goal? Is, oh, there's a product out there that I only need 5%. I can get, pre-approved for that. I can still look very competitive. So you've got to figure out what, where you are with that. So meeting with a lender is going to help you identify that. That's really important. And we have a lender webinar coming up on April 12th at noon. If you want to find out a little bit more about the lending process, that's a great way to understand what's involved with that. We'd love to have you join us for that. Thank you so much, attendees, for joining us, and panelists. Very grateful for your participation and knowledge and expertise. So,
And we'll send out a recording as well.
yes, we'll send a recording to all of you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks so
everyone.
much.
And
Okay.
good luck.